So we
Hello, this is Mathe, a political statement. This is me doing the intro. The views in this podcast are not necessarily reflective of the views held by that guy, the producer, or that guy's company, the production company. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Mini Mathe. This is more of a test than anything. Hopefully, we're able to get this uploaded. That would be cool. So, hey, Russ.
hola. So right now I'm wearing a little clip-on lav mic, and you're
Yeah,
rocking that mic.
I like this because it makes me feel like I'm a rapper. More like a real journalist, like I work at a radio station or
Oh,
something.
okay.
With that, I just feel like I'm like secure the asset.
Yeah. Well, it's meant for like if we start going to events, and
Yeah,
the upgrade of equipment will help for events so that we just look better.
yeah,
Yeah. Also, sound is good. So
yep.
yeah. So basically, we're going to talk about your overall thoughts of the 45th.
Ooh, Daddy Trump,
Yeah.
Daddy Trump. I actually almost wore my "Make America Great Again" hat on the way down here.
No. Okay.
Okay, so here are my actually. So I have a timeline on my thoughts of Trump. So when he first announced his candidacy for president, when he very, 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 very first announced it, I was like, that's cool. Good for him. Yay, a businessman as president. That makes sense. And then as time started going on, I started to kind of dislike him only because I fell into the media trap of people coming out and saying, "Oh, Trump this, Trump that. He's a racist. He's a neo-Nazi." And I fell into that pit, and I was a libertarian at the time. This is before I came back from the dark side and re-entered the conservative sphere. And so yeah, I was libertarian at the time, and that's distracting. No, I'm just kidding. I was a conservative or a libertarian at the time, and so I was gonna vote for Gary Johnson. And then two things happened shortly before the election, about 2 months before the election, that completely changed everything for me. And that's one, I Bill Weld, which was Gary Johnson's VP pick, came out basically endorsing Hillary and saying you guys should vote for Hillary. Trump's awful. He's terrible. And Bill Weld was a terrible choice for Gary Johnson in the first place because Gary Johnson is a quote unquote right leaning libertarian. No, he's not. Um, though he ran as a Republican when he was governor of New Mexico. And then Bill Weld is like, he's not even close to a libertarian. He's a leftist pretending to be a libertarian. Like he has more in common with, I'd say, probably Bernie Sanders than he would with Ron Paul. Who, and as you guys hopefully know, Ron Paul is like, although he didn't found the Libertarian Party, he's considered like one of the big founding father of the liberty movement. So much so that libertarians almost idolize him. And don't get me wrong, I think Ron Paul's great. So yeah, that's the first thing that happened. Second thing that happened is Trump made it an official part of his platform to do what he can to try to help out single mothers, which I thought was really cool because I didn't grow up with a single mother, but both of my parents were fairly poor, and my dad was working all the time, and so because of that, I pretty much lived primarily with my mom until she got remarried at like the age of 9 or something. She wasn't 9, I was 9. Um, so yeah. Oh my god, cough. So yeah, that's that. And so I kind of was like, well, screw the Libertarian Party. And I was really kind of into Trump at this point. So I started doing outside research and seeing all the amazing things he's done.
My bad.
There was I want to say, Hispanic boy whose mother was dying. So he like offered to like pay for her medical fees and like fly them to a hospital or something. There was another person that was like a model, and her family was all brutally murdered, and he housed her completely free. Like, he's done all this really cool, amazing stuff, but people don't say anything, or they just lie about it, or they pretend it didn't happen. And Trump has really been. Let me put it this way: he had a pretty easy billionaire lifestyle, and he gave that up to be at the butt end of just horrible comments, death threats, and just to basically be hated by over half the country just so he could do what he thinks is right and to try to save America. Which, oh my gosh, if that doesn't tell you what kind of man he is, I don't know what could. Don't get me wrong, there have been a few things that Trump has done in his presidency that I've been less than happy about. And primarily the way he has been acting towards the Second Amendment. Specifically, that brief moment when he was going to try to take on the NRA and then he didn't. And then now he's with the NRA because the NRA doesn't want 3D printed guns. And I'm a libertarian when it comes to guns. Like, I'm a full on 3D printed, fully automatic AR-15, all modded out kind of guy. Like that right there is ultimate freedom. Yeah. So that's the one big thing. I mean, I think Trump definitely has a point on illegal immigration. I mean, we need to be careful about who we let in, especially when you take into account that the largest gang in the U.S. is MS-13, which is comprised of mostly illegal immigrants, not necessarily from Mexico, but from El Salvador. I think it's El Salvador. It's one of those Latin American countries, and just the drugs and everything else that's being run across the border, human trafficking. Oh my gosh, I don't understand how the left can sit here and say that they care about the human trafficking issue and they care about sexual assault and all this, but then to be totally okay with the idea of open borders. I can't imagine what that would do to not only the child population of Central or of Mexico, Central America, and Southern America countries, but what that would do to women, to families. Oh my gosh, we'd have a bigger epidemic on our hands than we do. They say that we have more sex slaves in the U.S. now than we had general slaves in the U.S. when slavery was legalized. That's terrible. That's absolutely awful. So for the left to sit here and this whole abolish ICE movement to pop up, I can't believe the stupidity. I really can't. I don't understand how somebody could sit here and be like, we should completely unobserve the border. We should let whoever wants to come here, man. Well, the thing about America is it was meant to be a sanctuary, you know? It was meant to be land of the free, a place where we could preserve, at the time, the new idea of liberty, because that didn't exist anywhere else in the world. And I don't think it does exist to this extent that it exists in the U.S. Anywhere else in the world. And so, for instance, if you have a wildlife sanctuary, you know what you don't do? You don't let people jeep through it. You don't let people hunt in it or fish in it because it's a wildlife sanctuary. So why would you let somebody into a sanctuary of freedom without making sure that they are going to contribute to that environment of freedom? That they are going to contribute as productive members of society, to make sure that they know the language, are able to communicate with their fellow Americans. I don't understand it. So I think Trump has been spot on with the border. The wall, I'm a little iffy on because on the one hand, it's expensive. On the other hand, Israel has one. Mexico has one. China has one. I mean, I think if we built the wall good enough, it could possibly help. I know that they say like 40% of all illegal immigrants get here by flying, and that is true, but sex trafficking comes across the border. Like, you're not going to fly. That's too big of a risk. I mean, I know it happens because when I was at the airport in New York City, there were signs everywhere, like in the bathrooms, that said report to someone if you're a victim of sex trafficking. So it does happen. So yeah, there's illegal immigration. I think one of Trump's other, I'm going to try to address, I know this is supposed to be mini Mathe, but I'm going to try to address the two other big Trump points, which are Islam ban and and the abuse that we face by other countries, by, them exploiting us by selling their labor, not their labor, but their products over here and us buying it. But so anyway, yeah, the whole Muslim thing. It's not like he's banning all Muslims from all countries. And it's not like he's banning only Muslims. He's banning every individual that tries to come in from these 10 countries, with the exceptions of those that have to move now because of religious persecution. AKA Christians, because they're being killed over there. Imagine that. Media doesn't want to tell you about it, but whatever. And these 10 countries are the most likely countries for terrorism, except for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is not on the list, and it really should be. But for people to sit here and be like, it's Islamophobic. No, it's not. And even if it was, like, I have a whole episode dedicated to the cultural implications of Islam. So you guys can go check that out. But yeah, we need to make sure this comes back to the open borders. We need to make sure we're secured, and because we're pretty much the big victim for terrorism, we're the country that people see and they're like, oh, the evil Americans, the evil imperialist Americans. We got to show them. We got to kill the infidels. So we got to make sure we're secure, and we can't just let people in from other countries. And the whole asylum thing is complete bullshit. No, we should not be paying to protect or house or feed somebody from another country. We should, first of all, we shouldn't be doing that for anyone except for maybe our veterans. But let alone people that come here from another country and then they stick their hands out and they're like, well, you let us in and saved us from being killed, but now you owe us even more. It's ridiculous. So now let me get on to the third topic, and that's the topic of, the trade wars and the embargoes and all that. So the thing about China, India, Mexico, and all these other countries that we get a lot of our goods from is they don't have minimum wage, or if they do, it's extremely, extremely low. And so a lot of these products are built in like sweatshops or like highly condensed, packed factories. And so they are able to produce products at a cost way, way cheaper than anything we could produce in America. And they send them over to America. We buy them up. We sell them in our stores. That's not okay, because at that point, it's not capitalism. And I know people are sitting here like, oh, that's protectionism. No, it's not. We have so many labor laws in America that it doesn't make sense for us to not try to level the playing field. On top of that, America has become a country of consumers, not producers, and I think that's a big problem and a big part of the reason why our national debt is so big and why we have so many people that are just broke poor, and why we have this big divide between the 1% and 99%. But yeah, that's my thought on Trump. I think he's pretty much right across the board, except for maybe the guns. And I mean, I agree that with him when he says, if you ask him on almost any topic, like marijuana, it's a state issue. Gay marriage, he said it's a done deal. Like, he doesn't care. Abortion, I'm morally against abortion, but I'm legally for abortion. That being said, it's a state's issue. It needs to be a state issue. Like, for the government to sit here and be like, you have a right to rip a baby out of yourself and kill it, or a fetus, I'm sorry, to be politically correct, is ridiculous. You don't have a right to do it. I think you should be allowed to. Don't get me wrong. And although I'm completely morally against it and I find it to be absolutely abhorrent, I still think you should have the right, because who am I to say that you shouldn't have? There's that word again, not the right. Who am I to say that you shouldn't be allowed to? I still don't think it's a right, though. I think to sit here and be like, it's a human right. No, it's not a human right to have consequenceless sex. It's not. Like, that's cheating nature. If you have unprotected sex, you might get pregnant. And that's not unfair. It's called used fucking birth control or protection. And people might say, well, access to birth control. It's cheap.